Yi was reincarnated as the weakest man in a world of powerful warriors. At least that's what everyone believed at first. It all started when he spent 90 long hours smashing a game and finally unlocked a rare achievement. But then his electricity suddenly went out, blowing up all over his face. And somehow, instead of waking up in the ER, this boy found himself in a world full of magic and power. It wasn't Truck Kun this time around. That mofo has taken too many lives. Whatever the case, Yi's life was about to get a massive upgrade. A powerful entity welcomed him. The blue heavenly creature who looked like a smurf on juice introduced himself as System Golden Finger, an entity capable of granting him overwhelming power on par with the gods. But all he needed was a fee, because apparently, even divine power came with a monthly subscription. The young gamer had zero money whatsoever. The guy was broke, so the blue spirit offered him a loan for now, and even threw in a free martial arts school as a signing bonus. The deal was struck, and just like that, Yi received everything he was promised, including god-level mastery in swordsmanship and blacksmithing. That sounded nice and all, but there was one thing Yi cared about more than anything else: cultivation. Unfortunately, he couldn't absorb spiritual energy. Yi immediately realized something was terribly wrong. He had been promised overwhelming power, yet he couldn't even cultivate like an ordinary warrior. He couldn't believe he had taken such a huge loan for skills he thought were completely useless. But what Yi didn't realize was that he never needed cultivation in the first place, because the abilities he had already received were so absurdly powerful that the strongest warriors in the world would soon begin asking themselves, how the hell is the weakest guy doing all of this? But Yi had no idea. Little did he know. His journey was only just beginning. He was left to scream in despair when the magical creature disappeared, expecting his payments in installments. He traveled the land in misery for 5 years, until he decided to accept his fate and live a normal, simple life practicing the skills he was given. He painted, forged weapons, wrote books, and even took on a disciple at his martial arts school, not for any noble intentions. He just didn't want to feel lonely. Yi was currently broke, and the only way for him to make money was to sell his books to people on a traveling path. There was a day when Lan and her student Luoli were passing by. The student girl was intrigued by the book stand and went to take a look. Yi was shameless and took the opportunity to sweet-talk the girl into wanting to get a book. He basically did what the overgrown Murph did to him to her. Yi put zero value on his martial art books, but anything to make money, so he spoke a lot of BS to make it seem like the best thing in the world. Lan wasn't convinced by the trash material and grabbed her student for them to leave. But the girl was so adamant about buying the book that she transformed into her muscly version and left Lan with no choice other than to buy it. He didn't get the 10 silver coins he was hoping for, but Lan instead paid a single coin for the book and saw it as generous. The master and student continued their journey through the forest. They were part of the Qingshan sect, and the lady was stuck at the martial master level for years. She couldn't break through to the next level despite trying everything, but it changed when she took a look at the book. By simply reading it, she was able to level up by the knowledge in it, which she identified as being the purest form of martial art. Meanwhile, at her sect's location, her boss was trying to achieve martial king level in preparation for a fight with his rival, which was in 3 days. He had to break through, otherwise he and his clan would be eradicated. He sat there and recalled how this all happened. His students were fighting a demon wolf king for several months, and just when they were about to land the finishing strike, his rival named Ning claimed the kill and collected the high-level demon core. Qingshan obviously couldn't take the disrespect, so he went on the offensive, but his attack merely hit air. Ning was at the martial king level and easily evaded while dealing a blow. He promised to wipe out the Qingshan sect in 7 days, and then went on his way. That is what Qingshan had to deal with. He currently had no way of breaking through and knew he was finished. Not long after, Lan arrived to disturb his 3-day meditation, which was clearly going nowhere. Qingshan was stressing, so he told her to leave him alone in peace. The lady was adamant that he read the book she just bought, but he saw it as a waste of time and ordered her to leave with authority in his voice. Lan was stubborn and refused to go. She instead displayed her ability after breaking through to the martial spirit realm. Qingshan couldn't believe his eyeballs when he saw her power, and considered reading the book she brought. Just like her, he spoke down on it, and then he opened it. The man was blown away by the knowledge in such an insignificant book. He also experienced a breakthrough in his inner world, where he was literally being whipped into shape by System Golden Finger. He could feel the power pouring into him, and just like that, Qingshan had broken into the martial king realm. I think it is safe to say that Yi is overpowered. Speaking of Yi, this mofo was at the town market already spending his money on food like a fool, specifically meat. He was eating alone while his disciple was hungry back at the dojo. They had no food, so he told her to fast to become stronger. All the while, this so-called master was stuffing his face, Not too far from his location, a dog was stealing food from a vendor and made a clean escape, but it bumped into Yi enjoying his food and decided to attack him. It would happen that this dog was actually an incredibly powerful demon wolf who got banished from the heaven-devouring wolf tribe. Yi saw the attack coming and grabbed it with one hand. The wolf then unleashed a devastating attack, which did 0 damage to Yi. The only thing it damaged was his food, which got the guy angry. So as payment, he decided he was going to eat the creature for ruining his meal. The powerful wolf collapsed out of sheer fear. Clearly, Yi wasn't just some ordinary mortal. The guy was stupid strong, and he didn't even know it. On his way home, the fox attempted to strike at Yi again, but his ultimate attack just felt like a bump to the guy. As that was going on, Master Qingshan wanted to pay him a visit and implored that Lan take him there. When they arrived at his school, the entrance sign acted like some sort of security. Lan didn't notice, but Qingshan most certainly did. He brushed it off and the two entered the premises while respectfully calling out to Yi. These two knew he was incredibly powerful, so they were cautious in how they presented themselves. They were welcomed by Zhang, who was pleased to know that they came to see her master. Zhang looks like a boy, but I think she's a girl. Anyway, she kindly asked them to take a seat while she cleaned the place, but the guests were too awe-stricken to merely sit down and took over the cleaning until nighttime. Yi eventually arrived and was surprised Lan had come with her master to apologize for not paying the full amount. Yi was a chilled guy and invited them to stay for a meal since he was about to cook that stray wolf he just found. Qingshan and his student could feel the enormous demonic energy emanating from the basket Yi was carrying and were afraid, but Yi and his student couldn't have cared less. They felt 0 threat. He went inside to begin the prep. Even how he was cooking was on a divine level. Lan and Qingshan took a bite out of a vegetable he cut, and they were blown away. But they became afraid when the creature emerged from the basket. Just from one look they knew what it was, and retreated. They warned Yi when he came back in about the danger, and were surprised that the heavenly demon retreated in fear after seeing Yi. Qingshan thought it best not to eat the monster to avoid being hunted by the wolf tribe. They knew for sure that someone crazy enough to eat such a monster was at least 4 levels above Martial King. They wanted no part of it. Meanwhile, as Yi prepared to end the monster, Zhang came in and thought it was so cute. It seems like Zhang was also extremely powerful, as she hugged the beast asking her master to spare its life. Their puppy eyes didn't fail them. Yi agreed to keep it as a pet. Qingshan and his student were observing all of this while hiding behind a bush. They saw Zhang as being just an ordinary person who didn't possess the ability to cultivate. The whole situation didn't make any sense to them. Even the ordinary-looking kitchen blade Yi was holding was in reality a holy-tier divine weapon. Lan jumped out of the bushes to beg Yi for the weapon when Qingshan mentioned that borrowing it would help him defeat Ning. Yi didn't have an issue with it and humbly gave it to them as the sect master cried out of pure appreciation. He promised to return it as soon as he was done with it. They left the school after an eventful night and returned to their headquarters to test out the blade. An announcement was made for the prominent members to come witness the event. There was a particular stone they used to test out weapons. All he needed was for the weapon to cut it a little. He informed his followers that if he were to die in this battle, he wanted them to give Yi their most treasured item. They didn't understand, but he just told them to do it. The yapping was over, and it was now time to test the weapon. The old man grabbed it with both hands and swung with all his might, but nothing happened. He began to cry, thinking he misjudged the item. He knew for sure he was finished. Before the students noticed his failure, the rock behind him shattered into 1,000,000,000 pieces. Qingshan was now ready for the fight of his life. The day arrived, and Yi saw it as a huge business opportunity. He crafted a few binoculars so he could rent them out to the people who wanted to witness the battle. Since it was going to be dangerous, normal folks couldn't get close enough to see it. He led them to a vantage point and began his pitch, which was successful. They were able to watch the fight from a safe distance. It didn't take long for Ning to arrive and the exchange in hands to begin. Qingshan was confident since he was now at the same level as his enemy. When the blows began to flow, he soon learned from a smack to the face that Ning was on the higher level of Martial King. He had Qingshan's face looking like a certain UFC fighter after being humbled. Ning revealed the crazy bombshell that he had been at Martial King realm for at least 20 years now. The news made Qingshan realize he was cooked. Ning showed him 0 mercy and whooped Qingshan's ass using his bootleg bottom of the Shelf Shadow clone jutsu. He beat Qingshan as if the old man insulted his mother. Your mother! Qingshan was fighting for his life, breathing all the oxygen his lungs could take. This man stood no chance, and he knew it. The power gap was too much. He placed his hand behind, waiting for the perfect chance to whip out that kitchen blade and slice Ning London style once his guard was down. But somehow, he knew about Qingshan's divine weapon. That revelation proved there was a rat in the Qingshan sect. Ning began his move when he summoned a green substance straight out of Shrek's swamp. He too had a divine weapon of his own, though his was cursed. It is said to have claimed 1,000,000 souls, and would even take 10 years out of the user's lifespan. This guy wasn't playing around. Qingshan also pulled out his weapon, but no one was impressed. They all laughed at him with that laugh that makes you want to cry. Well, he didn't have time to shed a tear when Ning went on the offensive, which Qingshan could do nothing about. Although the old man was confident in Yi's forging ability, he didn't believe a simple kitchen butcher knife could do anything against Ning's soul-eating weapon. Qingshan had given up at this point. Old man was panicking, but that was when he heard the inspiring words of Yi to never give up. Qingshan thought he had come to cheer him on. The reality, however, was that Yi didn't want the fight to end. If the duel ended, he'd lose customers. So greed is what inspired him to utter those beautiful words. Qingshan was inspired indeed. Even his aura changed as noted by Lan. It was all the same to Ning. He went in for the attack, which at first looked like it devoured Qingshan, but the old man had faith in Yi and simply swung the knife. That simple attack completely destroyed Ning's weapon and took out his arm for good measure. He didn't even wait for the dust to clear and retreated with his subordinates. The Qingshan sect wasn't about to let them escape, but their leader dropped in saying it was okay. He believed Yi wanted them to show mercy, and for both sects to exist in a state of balance where one doesn't dominate the other. Yi, on the other hand, wanted the fighting to continue to retain his customers. He was left in misery when they left after the fight was over. Well, his situation was about to get worse when he bumped into his childhood crush and girlfriend Peng Ying, who came with bad news. She had been accepted into the Qingshan sect, which forbade relationships between cultivators and mortals. That's right, she came to break up with him. What was worse was she instantly run into the arms of a man from the sect who pulled some strings to get her in. Although heartbroken, Yi left the scene after seeing her true colors. He knew she belonged to the streets. Meanwhile, this new man was revealed to be the rat in the Qingshan sect, as he was shown reporting back to Ning. He was about to get eliminated for not being a good spy. That is when he told Ning everything he knew about how Qingshan achieved such power. He pointed to the martial art gym in Jiangping City as being the reason why. He heard there was a formidable master there, but he didn't know it was Yi. Ning spared his life and summoned the Wu brothers, Wu Chen and Wu Feng. They were incredibly powerful demons from the Dark Group. Ning tasked them to find the person behind all of this. He didn't care if they brought him back dead or alive, so the brothers went on their way. They began terrorizing different martial schools looking for this mysterious person. After destroying one establishment, they bumped into an old man who they told to mind his business before he met an early death. But looking at the old midget, no one needed to tell you he was very strong. Just from one look, they felt his aura and fled the scene. Wu Feng sensed he had power 10 times that of their master. Wu Chen said his calculations wasn't correct, because it was at least 100 times. They didn't get far into the woods when the old man caught up to them as he flew above them like an airborne squirrel. He stretched out his palm and released a scorching fire attack, which claimed a big portion of the forest. But the brothers barely managed to escape. One of them thought this was the guy their master was after, but the other reminded him that the person they were looking for was said to be new to Jiangping City. Old Man prepared another attack he intended to use to finish them. The brothers were forced to use a very special relic known as the Sentian Stone to teleport from that location. They arrived at the area where Yi's school was. They almost missed it and weren't impressed with how it looked when they saw it. Their presence was felt by the little wolf who was tasked with guarding the compound. His name was Ao Qing, and he stood up ready to fight. He tried to warn Zhang about the enemies, but she didn't understand what he was saying. Wu Chen released his aura, and the wolf was sure he couldn't defeat them in his current state. Meanwhile, the brothers looked down on the establishment and felt only one person was needed to do the job. Wu Chen began by attacking the banner just above the entrance, but it regenerated and launched weapons at them. Wu Feng evaded, but Wu Chen was curled up into a ball. The fear in his eyes was intense, and he warned his brother to escape, but it was too late. A barrier had trapped them within the entrance, and they were transported into a different dimension. They broke out of their fear when Wu Chen remembered that he had the Sentian Stone, which could easily deal with any situation. That was until they saw the incredible aura of Yi, who saw them as mere insects. They were swatted away and died instantly. Yi was completely unaware about what he just did. Matter of fact, he didn't even know his building was under attack. One of them splattered the wall like modern art, while the other eviscerated, leaving only a single bone. Zhang came out to check what was going on after hearing a sound, but she was only met with the Sentian Stone and a piece of Wu Feng's cloak. Ao Qing watched her use the godly treasure to fill a gap in the stairs, and took the cloak, which was also an ultimate treasure, as a rag. The wolf fainted just from observing that. It didn't take long for the old man, whose name was Wu Zong, to arrive at the location, but he was there for a different reason. Old Man Wu knew Yi from their regular board games and had come to challenge him. He was no match as he took yet another L. Wu was amazed by Yi's presence and was sure he wasn't just some ordinary guy. What confirmed it for him was when he saw that the Shantian stone was used to mend the stairs. He couldn't believe Yi had already dealt with the brothers. He wanted Yi to acknowledge his power, so he summoned a supreme divine rake he almost lost his life obtaining. It was said to be among the top 10 weapons. Yi just saw it as scrap metal and a useless farming tool. He told Old Man Wu to throw it away, but when the old man was deeply offended by what he said, Yi offered to clean up the rusted weapon. He took it to his workstation to repair it for 5 coins. Wu couldn't wait to see his ability. With only a single swing of his hammer, Yi was able to get rid of the bloodstains that coated the weapon over the years. It took on a new golden form which left old Wu speechless. The fox regained consciousness only to faint again after witnessing Yi's work. All the while, Qingshan had brought his second-in-command Yuner to visit Yi. They hardly made it in when Qingshan saw a dragon energy manifesting as a result of Yi's forging. Yuner was more surprised to see the legendary Wuzong, who was at Martial Sage level, which was 2 ranks above Martial King. They couldn't believe he was panicking when witnessing Yi's work. Old Wu was so amazed and afraid that he even began to call out for his mama. Yi presented the refined weapon and didn't ask for a fee, thinking that Wu was upset after losing their game. Qingshan pointed out that even if he sold the entire sect, it still wouldn't be enough to pay for Yi's service. Old Man Wu was so grateful that he decided to sign a heavenly agreement and earthly contract, which used the earth as paper and lightning as a pen. He swore to sacrifice his life 10,000 times for Yi if he ever needed it. The crazy thing is this contract couldn't be broken. After the spectacle, Old Wu started acting real suspicious, so Yi kicked him out of his compound. It was only then did Yi see Qingshan and Yuner, who had come to gift Yi the flame pearl, which was his sect's most valuable treasure. Yi accepted it with grace and presented them with his new martial art book. Yuner sensed the value in it. She snatched it and ran away while being chased by Qingshan. He eventually caught up to her and forcefully took the book from her. All the while, Yi had traveled to the main city in hopes to get a publishing deal for his books. He had a meeting with Chairman Mao, who had this persistent, smug look on his face. The guy was a higher-up in the Jiangping Chambers of Commerce. At first, it looked like he was going to strike a deal with Yi, but he spoke down to the guy saying there was no way they were going to publish his trash books. Yi was disappointed, but he kept his dignity and left without even taking up Chairman Mao's offer for tea. Yi made his way to a dirty alleyway to sulk about his rejection. Halfway through sulking, Lan, along with Luo Li, arrived with a basket of fruits courtesy of Qingshan. He felt a little better after taking one bite. His books were all over the floor, and the girl noticed he was the author of a novel that Lan loved to bits. Lan's dream was to always meet the author. She stopped Luo Li from revealing her true admiration for the one who wrote the book. She was totally smitten by him. Luo Li dropped the news that her father was the president of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce and offered to help Yi publish his books. Her only condition was for Yi to kiss Lan. Luo Li was being her wing woman, but Lan didn't feel she was worthy of Yi's crusty lips, so she respectfully declined. They made their way to see if her father would help. When he heard that Qingshan referred to Yi as master, he felt compelled to publish whatever nonsense Yi wrote. Although publishing wasn't their speciality, the president wanted work to begin right away and was willing to take the risk of their business going bust. His chance paid off because when the novel was released, it was an instant hit. The people loved it immensely. Yi had gotten the breakthrough he desperately needed. Some time had passed since then, and one of the members of Ning's sect named Suling had traced the brother's aura to Yi's school. For some reason, she was able to clear the entrance and observed Yi from a distance. She saw Ao Qing bring out a bone to him. He took it off him and threw it for the wolf to fetch, but Suling caught it and saw the spirit of Wu Feng. She couldn't believe the guy was dead. Before she could process it, Yi was behind her asking if she recognized it. The lady was spitting blood out of fear and quickly dashed out of there terrified that Yi would eliminate her, even though Yi was completely clueless and was inviting her for tea. Later that day, a servant from the Baofen Chambers of Commerce had come with good news. He handed Yi with a golden card that had 300,000 silver coins in there, which was a share of the previous month's sales. Yi couldn't believe the huge amount, but from his facial expression, the servant thought he was displeased. He ran out of there scared and promised to let his boss know that the amount wasn't enough. Yi, on the other hand, was extremely ecstatic. He was now rich. His celebration was rudely interrupted by Chairman Mao, who had come with an offer of 100,000 and to apologize. The chairman was told to make amends with Yi by his fellow colleagues. Because of his blunder of dismissing Yi, their institution had been surpassed by Baofen Chambers of Commerce, who had crazy success selling Yi's book. Yi wasn't interested in his help now, and gave him the same cold dismissal he received. Chairman Mao had to just take the L, especially after seeing the VIP gold card he got. As that was going on, Suling was reporting the horror she witnessed back to Ning. Ning was livid that the brothers were eliminated in such a brutal way. His rage was sent over the edge when he found out that their precious relics were used as a step filling and a useless rag. Ning couldn't take the disrespect and promised to wipe out Yi with his own hands. He ordered his people to prepare because they were going to war. Meanwhile, Yi was completely oblivious to the danger that was coming his way. The guy was chilling with his two disciples when old Wu showed up in the most over-the-top manner with his overpowered friends. One of them couldn't sense any spiritual energy and wondered why old Wu was wasting their time, but it didn't take long for them to see the Shentian stone and the swift cloak being used in a nonchalant manner. They couldn't believe Ao Qing was chewing on the sacred cloak as if it was a rag, but when the wolf dog locked eyes with them, he was terrified. Old Wu, along with his 3 friends, were all at martial ancestor level. Yi came to greet them puzzled why his so-called guard dog was always scared and fainting. The 4 friends were even more humbled when they experienced the scale of Yi's power and began acting weird. Yi wasn't having their strange behavior in his yard and scolded them like they were his kids asking to buy stupid things at the grocery store. He sat them down and excused himself to look for the chessboard. The friends instantaneously started speculating Yi's level, thinking he was a high-level immortal. They couldn't handle the heat of his potential power, so they made a run for it out of fear. Yi caught them and demanded to know what they were up to. All 4 grown men were scared to answer, but after learning they were only going outside for fresh air, he told them it was no big deal. The friends cuddled together weeping that Yi didn't eliminate them. The 4 of them sat outside glad to have met such an incredible man. As that was going on, Ning and his men had arrived to take their revenge. The 4 could sense their killing intent from a mile away. Ning took the lead when he learned from his scouts that 4 old men were sitting at the entrance of their target location. Ning in that moment didn't know who they were and referred to them as ants. The guy hadn't even touched down when he noticed who the 4 were. Ning realized he made the biggest mistake of his life calling these martial ancestors ants. He hurriedly got on his knees and face when he landed, begging for their forgiveness when they questioned him about his ant statement. These seniors were also known as the 4 madmen, so Ning tried to retreat. He was apprehended by one of them named Li Moche. Ning's disciples had arrived just in time to see their master being manhandled. They went in to save him, but that is when the other member named Sun Zhuge erected a barrier that stopped them from proceeding. The last member named Shikuang attacked them with a flamed beast that defeated a few and sent the rest sprinting for their lives. Ning was still pleading for mercy, saying his beef wasn't with them, but was rather with the owner of the martial institution. They wanted to finish him fast, but remembered that they needed permission from Yi first. Ning was on his face wondering who this mysterious person they had such high respect for was. He came out on his way to go buy groceries and didn't want anything to do with what was going on when they asked how he wanted to deal with Ning. The man just uttered some vague words and told them to deal with it themselves as he took off to run his errands. Ning was quivering, thinking they were going to end him. He offered his sect's entire resource, but the 4 elders weren't impressed, thinking it wasn't enough to apologize to Master Yi. The only way to even things was to take his other arm. Ning panicked and attempted to run away, promising to get whatever treasure they wanted, but he was against the 4 madmen, so he didn't get far. He lost his good arm and was warned to never disturb their master ever again, otherwise his entire sect would be eliminated. When Ning returned to his base armless, the fool didn't learn his lesson, especially when a considerable amount of his followers left. Ning cursed Yi for the suffering he caused. The leader still wanted to destroy the guy. Yuner came and saw him in his emotional state, and that is when it hit him. His plan was to mess with Yi's mind by using Yuner as a honey trap. Elsewhere, Chairman Mao also had the same idea and sent one of his girls to do the same thing, especially after he lost his position at the company thanks to Yi. But Yi was busy living his life as he took Zhang to a festival. She essentially dragged him there to witness the so-called 4 great scholars. They were poets and painters loved by a huge fan base. The gathering was a lot, and the people were going mad for their poetry. Yi was the opposite. He hated what they recited and called it trash. But he soon took those harsh words back when the crowd gave him the death stare. He couldn't take their crazy support and ditched the event by himself. But he soon bumped into his ex, Peng Ying. He was hopeful that they could get back together. He even brought up all the good times they had. The lady, however, was having none of it. She lifted her hand to slap him, screaming for him to get away from her. Before it could land, the lady Chairman Mao sent came in for the rescue and blocked the attack. She professed to being Yi's biggest fan, which made the guy so happy. Peng Ying saw her interruption as an insult and activated her powers to flatten the lady for her rudeness. But she was saved by Yuner, who tripped the ex up, also claiming to be Yi's biggest fan. Peng Ying was really getting furious at this point and whipped out her blade to do maximum damage. The thrust was easily blocked by the 2 fingers of Yuner. The ex knew she really messed up, and before she could apologize, Yuner had already whipped out a bag of popcorn and began pelting her with it like she was casting out demons. She then broke the sword with the treat and sent Peng Ying running away in embarrassment and injured. The ladies introduced themselves to him. The honey trap sent by Chairman Mao was named Mao Yu and was his daughter. Yi thanked them for their help and invited them for drinks and food later that night to show his gratitude. The ladies agreed and reported back to their masters. Both masters gave the ladies the exact same potion to seduce Yi, so they went on their way to meet with him. Yun'er's plan was to ambush Mao Yu and get rid of her, but after she saw through Yun'er's camouflage, the demon was fascinated by her and decided to win fair and square. At the meeting place, Yi was playing a card game with two other ladies as he waited for his guests to arrive. The establishment housed other people, and the four great scholars from earlier were there having a meal. With them being famous, all eyes were on them. So when Mao Yu and Yun'er arrived, everyone turned to look at them and were amazed by their appearance. The ladies told the receptionist that they were looking for someone. The scholars thought they were obviously talking about them and stood up with their arms in the air to signal the ladies over. But they spotted Yi on the balcony and called out to him and ignored the famous poets. They were left looking like fools, so they sat back down out of embarrassment. They couldn't believe someone like Yi had such game to pull those women. Yi took them to the private booth he booked, where the battle for his attention began. It even carried on when the food came as the two fought to feed him. He had enough of their fighting and ordered them to behave or leave. The ladies agreed to stop fighting and take up his offer to teach them how to play a card game. He later went to the restroom after winning, which presented the perfect opportunity for the women to begin their plot. When they realized they had the same plan, they emptied all the potion into the teapot. Yi returned, so they poured some for him. He then picked up the teapot and served them, so they too had no choice but to drink. It didn't take long for the effect to kick in. He was acting erratic and complained about being too hot. It was now left for the ladies to do their thing. They began acting as if they were in heat and almost got Yi, but the guy locked in and beat the temptation when he excused himself once more to the bathroom. Yi's system had flushed out the potion while the ladies were still suffering with thirst and desire. Yi eventually left the premises after getting many warnings of misfortune coming his way when he attempted to go finish the game. All the while, Limosi was leading Old Wu and the other two ancestors to a secret location. They didn't get far until Limosi expressed his true intentions. The guy turned around and erected a barrier dome around his friends. It was clear that this pencil neck-looking guy had betrayed them. He brought them to a specific location where a battle between immortals and demons took place in ancient times. The location had a natural energy that favored him to carry out his plan of eliminating Old Wu and the others. Old Wu wasn't going to just sit around and die in such a place, so he summoned the weapon Yi fixed to break out. He was surprised when Limosi neutralized his attack and stated that their powers were only a fraction in his barrier. Limosi revealed his intentions, and it wasn't good. The guy was going after Yi. He somehow wanted to steal Yi's power. Apparently, the following day was a special time in history that only occurred once every 5,000 years. That was the perfect time to steal Yi's power. Limosi had already began his plan by first stealing Yi's good luck to stop whatever punishment the heavens would send his way for using forbidden magic. The other three saw that Limosi had been driven mad by his desire for power. Old Wu couldn't allow Yi to be taken out like that and sent a signal to warn him, but Limosi shot him down with an attack. We then cut to Ao Qing, the coward guard dog, who was pooping bricks after sensing an enormous dark energy emerging from the storage room. He had already felt it the night prior, but this time whatever was inside was coming out. He dug himself into the ground because apparently if you don't see your problems, then they don't exist. Yi came over to feed him and removed him from the ground, wondering why he was so afraid. Ao Qing was glad to see his master and jumped into his arms, relieved. He warned his master to run away when the menacing energy emerged. It was a tiny skeleton Ao Qing was completely terrified of. The dog wolf fainted from a single glance, which annoyed Yi. So he kicked Skeleton away and began to beat him up for coming out looking like an undead. Skeleton apologized for only looking natural, and then Yi handed him a cloak to cover himself with. Today was the day Li Moche was waiting for, so the guy set his plan in motion by first casting a huge barrier around the small town Yi resided in. His action changed the weather, and rain started to pour. He made his way over to Yi's location where Skeleton sensed him. He didn't attack right away because Yi warned him never to scare his guests. But as soon as Li Mosi commenced his attack, Skeleton was positive this weakling was an enemy. The guard dog could feel the killing intent from the pencil neck, and warned Yi, who was unaware of the danger, but Yi only heard the warnings as nagging barking. Li Mozi had cast another powerful barrier around Yi's home to prevent him from using any type of powers. He launched a powerful spiritual sword attack hoping to end Yi, but when it hit his back, Yi absorbed it completely oblivious and thought he heard a lightning attack. Li Mosi was utterly shocked and tried a different approach when he launched a deadly indestructible bug that could break through any defense. but Yi just squished it with a single clap of his palms. At this point, Limosi had no more shock to express because he was way past being astonished. What he just witnessed was his cue to scram out of there, and boy did he leave quickly. Skeleton wasn't about to just let him get away like that, so he followed him. He caught up within an instant and cast his own barrier around the guy. Limosi knew it wasn't Yi at first until he started getting beaten up like he was a naughty kid. Pencil Neck was really scared now. The way he was getting beat, he thought for sure Skeleton had to be Yi, and that Yi was at least a legendary immortal. Skeleton enlightened him that he was just a mere servant, and then dropped the heavy bombshell that Yi was a god. What was even more startling was that Skeleton too was a god. Limosi didn't believe him at first until Skeleton reversed time and made him look young. Skeleton then fast-forwarded time, which ended Limosi's life. He expressed regret as he disintegrated for trying to mess with a god. The entire battle was witnessed by an old man. He couldn't comprehend how a martial ancestor was eliminated so easily and was shaking behind a rock, feeling like he shouldn't have seen that. His shaking only got worse when Skeleton appeared in front of him. The old man begged for mercy and promised to offer him high-level pills since he was an alchemist of the highest order. Of course, being a so-called god, Skeleton wasn't in need of such things. He told the old man to slap himself 100 times and leave the place immediately. As this occurred, Chairman Mao's idiotic son had arranged a meeting with the Zodian gang to deal with the Qingshan Chambers of Commerce by eliminating their competition. Chairman Mao would really need his son's help because his daughter came to him with the worst news imaginable. Not only did she report a complete failure of her mission, the girl had also lost some of her father's treasures to Yi in the card game they played. Chairman Mao almost suffered a cardiac arrest after hearing that. Elsewhere, Ning was also suffering a similar fate when Yuna reported her failure. She too had lost valuable Sek treasures to Yi. As they despaired, Yi was busy snoring his head off. He woke up in a panic, asking where Skeleton had gone. That little creature was stressing him out. He was going around the town causing trouble for Yi. The master even ended up in the local news. Yi had enough and did everything to get rid of Skeleton, but no matter what he did, Skeleton always came back. Drowning didn't work, burning him didn't work. Matter of fact, the little creature thought Yi was rewarding him. Yi was tired and fed up. Things were about to get worse when the town people showed up to his place complaining about Skeleton. They demanded payment for the damages caused by the little guy. Yi had no option but to line them up and hand over his newly acquired wealth. I mean, he didn't have the stomach to actually give it out, so he had Zhang distribute the compensation while Yi cried in the background. It all got out of hand when the impatient people began to angrily storm the place. Yi escaped to look for Skeleton and to deal with him once and for all. The creature was busy in the town center up to no good. He was a man of culture, but on a creepy level when he reached out to grab the natural buns of the ladies. Yi arrived in time and drop-kicked him in the face before emphatically whooping his ass as he threw Gatling fists at his large cranium. He then took the skeleton whose name was Benwei home to get rid of him once and for all. Yi was becoming broke again because of Benwei's foolishness, so something had to be done. As he pondered on what to do, Zhang, who I'm now finding out is actually a boy, informed Yi that Chairman Mao sent him an invitation to discuss money. Yi didn't want anything to do with that man, but Zhang offered to go in his place. The young apprentice noticed that they were in desperate need of money, so perhaps having an extra source of income wouldn't be a bad idea. Yi agreed for him to go while he was busy with Benwei. He finally came up with a way to rid the skeleton from his life. He broke the creature into different parts as Benwei cried and sealed each piece away, which finally did the job. At this point, Zhang had already been collected by the special carriage sent by Chairman Mao, and not long into the journey, assassins were waiting for the perfect opportunity to claim Yi's life. They had been hired by Chairman Mao to get rid of the writer, but they didn't know that Zhang was the one inside. They waited until he reached the main city to launch their attack. They were surprised to see it was only a boy, and chased him insisting that Zhang spill his master's whereabouts. The boy ran as fast as his little legs could take him, and was eventually forced to engage them. He put up a brave fight, but inevitably he was no match and got gravely injured. One of the locals rushed to Yi's location to inform him of what happened. The master wasted no time and 10 toes there, only to see his student on death's doors. He acted promptly, and brought the kid back to the dojo for treatment. Yi was rushing around looking for a cure, but the guard dog knew Zhang's organs were failing. It was the first time Ao Qing had seen his master so powerless. The dog noted within himself that only the legendary immortal herb could save him. The best thing Yi could do for now was to give Zhang the soul-returning pill the golden finger system gave him. It couldn't save the kid, but it was enough to keep him alive for 7 days while he found a solution. Yi decided that he was going to look for the culprit and send them 6 feet under. Elsewhere, The head assassin knelt before Chairman Mao to present the bad news that they got the wrong person. The guy was livid, breaking cups and everything. The mission was a failure. Chairman Mao was confused on what to do, but his son came to the rescue, and before he offered a solution, he slew the assassin without a first thought, forget about a second thought. He brought out the 3 martial spirit experts he employed. His father believed it was a brilliant plan because these guys could easily deal with Yi. The only concern he had was their asking price. But when he found out that they wanted 100 beautiful females, he was elated since that was easy for him to acquire. The deal was struck and both parties were happy. What they didn't know was that Yi was also planning his revenge. The master arrived at the Baofen Chambers of Commerce to meet up with President Yao Lin to seek his help in finding out who hurt his student. Yao Lin figured out that Chairman Mao had something to do with it, so he quickly went to the Qingshan sect to ask for their help. Qingshan himself was busy training with the weapon Yi gave him and had informed his students not to disturb him for 30 days. But the news was so urgent that Lan had no choice but to interrupt her master. Qingshan wasn't happy about the disturbance at first until he heard Yi needed help. When he got the full breakdown of what happened, the man was visibly upset. He gathered all his men to descend hell upon the Jiangping Chambers of Commerce. Meanwhile, Chairman Mao had begun his payment to the fools when he held a mini-party with women and drinks. They were enjoying themselves until an informant came to warn them about the Baofen Chambers of Commerce working with the Qingshan sect to launch an attack. Chairman Mao was initially anxious, but the 3 men assured him not to fear since those guys were no match for them. They didn't even think the Qingshan sect would go all out for a mere writer. Moments later, the informant came back again to tell them that a huge army of the Qingshan people were outside. They should have known from the fear in his eyes that he wasn't joking, but the arrogant idiots thought he was exaggerating and even attacked him for opening his mouth. The 3 men went outside full of pride to deal with the situation, but as soon as they emerged and saw the number of people flying above them, they were positive that they had bitten off more than they could chew. Qingshan and his disciples echoed that it was time to avenge Master Yi's precious disciple. Out came Chairman Mao and his dumb son, both beyond drunk. Believing Qingshan and his party stood no chance against these 3 he hired. If only he could read what his champions were thinking. Their sweating and shaking was clearly enough of a signal. They swiftly made an excuse to abandon the mission, but Qingshan used that special kitchen knife to blast an attack that stopped them in their tracks. After learning what sect they were from, Qingshan ordered a few of his men to follow him, while Lan and the rest were told to destroy Chairman Mao's place. The reality of the situation finally set in for Chairman Mao. He was lost for words that they would go so far for a mere writer. He didn't know the true status of Yi. His spineless son with zero pressure quickly threw his daddy under the bus and blamed him for everything. That wasn't enough to save them both when they were dragged by Lan and her senior to Yi. This was the first time Yi was serious. He pulled out a sword to end Chairman Mao. At least the man was honorable as he pled for his son to be saved. His son, on the other hand, was still on his cowardly vibe. The guy didn't even beg for his father to be spared. Fortunately for Chairman Mao, he had a responsible daughter. Mao Yu came out of nowhere with tears flowing down her face. Maybe on a normal day, her crying would have saved her father, but not today, because Yi was pissed. Life for a life, that's what Yi demanded. Chairman Mao clearly saw no way out, so he ran headfirst into a huge boulder, bringing an end to his pathetic life. His children were spared. They were, however, warned to leave the city and to never return. Meanwhile, Qingshan and his men, high on adrenaline, barged into the headquarters of the Zhatian gang. They barely took a step in when all of them got trapped inside a magical field by Emperor Wu Yebei. He was in charge and his power far surpassed Qingshan's. Ironically, Qingshan and his men had bitten off more than they could chew. Yebei was an absolute demon, a prodigy. Qingshan had led his men to certain death. The finishing strike from Yebei was heading for the intruders who were being pinned down by Yebei's pressure. Qingshan had no choice but to whip out the kitchen knife to fight for his life. Initially, Yebei laughed at the counter, but then his face received a cut which surprised him. He wondered how such a weak attack could affect him. Then he saw the knife. The man sent his ghost to retrieve it, and he immediately recognized it as a godly weapon. Qingshan disclosed it was crafted by his senior, so Yebei did a soul search and got an image of Yi through Qingshan's memories. He wasn't impressed with Yi in the least, but he was curious. Within an instant, he left to go challenge Yi and arrived in no time. The emperor was not impressed with the establishment at all. He felt zero magical energy. Yebei wasted no time and ticked the gong which expressed his challenge. Meanwhile, Ben Wei, who was still sealed inside the well, used his X-ray vision to get a look at the fool who was challenging his master. In a situation like this, Ao Qing the guard dog would have fainted by Yebei's presence, but he knew Yi was home, so he slept with no worries. Yi came out to find out what all the noise was about, only to be met by Ye Bei, who asked for a fight. His condition was that he would take the martial arts school if he won. Yi called him a loser and rejected the challenge. The rejection clearly hit a nerve in Ye Bei, who refused to leave without throwing hands. His wish was honored, so Yi told him to bring it on. His first powerful attack was sensed by Yi as a stinky fart, and the emperor couldn't even land a single strike on Yi as he evaded everything and flipped the man on his back. He did all of this without even putting down his little garden basket. Ye Bei didn't get the hint when he tried another attack. He only partially understood the difference in level when his special treasure-infused attack was easily crushed by Yi. Even still, the foolish man wouldn't accept defeat. He activated the forbidden magic, which looked like it had the power to flatten a city, but Yi gave him a magnificent slap to the face that recalibrated Ye Bei's brain cells. It was only now that he truly understood that Yi was on a different level. He begged for mercy, but Yi grabbed him and gave him a good-ass whooping. Ye Bei was only able to escape when Yi remembered that Zhang was unwell. No time was wasted when the man ran out of the martial arts school with his precious life. Yi ignored him and just carried on with his day when he prepared food to serve his dying student. Lan soon joined him, and he asked for a favor. He wanted her to be by Zhang's side while he went on a journey to collect special herbs that would be made into medicine to save Zhang's life. She first suggested that they go ask Yao Lin if he had that medicine, but when they arrived and he saw what they were asking for, he bluntly informed Lan that even if his company were to sell all their possessions, they couldn't afford a single pill. Collecting the herbs was the only way. However, Yao Lin was skeptical that even Yi was capable of succeeding. The thing was, those 3 plants were located at a dangerous location forbidden to humans. The terrain was ruled by demons. One of the plants was said to be very precious to the Demon King and was impossible to retrieve. While those 2 were freaking out, Yi was casually making a list of what he needed for the trip. Lan was adamant to accompany him, but Yi advised her to stay, just in case John woke up. He thought it'd be nice for the lad to be greeted by a familiar face. The estimated length of the trip was 10 years, so Yao Lin prepared a mountain of goods to last Yi that time. But Yi being Yi, he only picked 3 gardening tools and went on his way. Back at Qingshan's location, he and his men were on the verge of death, still trapped in Ye Bei's force field. The man had made a return after his meeting with Yi, and for a moment, Qingshan thought he had come to finish them off. So he was surprised when Ye Bei canceled the force field of death and apologized for what happened. Ye Bei knew within himself that if he laid a finger on the Qingshan sect, Yi would obliterate him. To show his sincerity, he transported Qingshan to a different location for a huge buffet. Of course, Qingshan was still confused, but he didn't have the power to do anything other than to try his hardest to resist whatever plot Ye Bei had in mind. It was kinda hard for Qingshan not to believe his genuineness when the old man got his kitchen knife back. To put the icing on the cake, Ye Bei made a diabolical move when he brought out 2 female furries Qingshan just couldn't resist.
Not gonna lie, I'm folding in this situation.
You absolute simp. The old perv buried the beef between the 2 sects as he got whisked away by the ladies. That evening, a huge banquet was held between the 2 sects. It wasn't until Lan brought up how strange Ye Bei's attitude change was, and that was when Qingshan realized the man had encountered Yi and got humbled. He got a mild heart attack when he found out that Yi had gone to the Bakufu mountain. Anyone hearing this would assume the man would never return, so he decided to keep this information away from Ye Bei, otherwise he'd switch up faster than he did the first time. All the while, Yi through his journey had seen Old Wu and the other 2 still trapped inside the barrier. They frantically signaled for him not to come closer, otherwise he'd lose his power. Yi thought they were telling him the opposite, and as soon as he entered, the barrier completely broke. Even the 2 were totally shocked. Old Wu, however, was on the floor at death's doors. He had no strength and had lost his ability to use spiritual energy. His friends tried all they could to save him, but nothing worked. Yi didn't see his injury as such a big deal, and decided to treat the man with a few herbs he picked. He rubbed them together and added his spit. That was all. The other 2 questioned his method, but they quickly swallowed their doubt when Old Wu healed completely. He even regained his ability to use spiritual energy. The guy was basically better than ever. Old Wu wasted no time and got on his knees thanking Yi for saving him. The only way he believed he could repay Yi was to serve him. Yi didn't understand why he was overreacting like that. He saw what he did as something so simple. Even to this day, Yi had no clue he was overpowered. Yi got creeped out by their admiration and quickly excused himself from them. Elsewhere, one of the plants he was searching for was being guarded by 2 powerful demons, one of which was much stronger than Ye Bei. The plant had been growing for years and was almost ready to be harvested by the Demon King. Whatever security measure they put in place was easily bypassed by Yi. The guards caught a glimpse of him abseiling and reaching out to get the herb like he was a spy. The crow, who was the most powerful out of the 2, jumped straight into action with a mighty attack. But after looking into Yi's eyes, fear entered the demon's heart. He regrouped and prepared a strong wind attack, but Yi just smacked him with a common shovel that ended the bird. The other centipede guard fainted out of sheer fright. Yi had already retrieved what he wanted. The centipede later woke up after a gust of wind blew past his face. He thought maybe it was all a dream, but when he saw the herb missing and the crow dead, he planned his escape. There was no way he could tell the Demon King, otherwise he'd be dead. But before he made his great getaway, he thought it best to steal the treasure Crow had hidden, to kick-start his new life. In the middle of digging, the Demon King, who was a turtle, arrived. He was beyond livid when he heard the news. His fury destroyed the part of the platform that had the treasure. Centipede's perfect escape plan was ruined. Turtle then called on his minions to search for the human who stole his herb. He wanted the culprit captured alive. The Demon King's next step was to retrieve his other special plant before anything could go wrong. He and Centipede prepared to make their way to his cave where the plant was safe. What they didn't know was that Yi was already exploring the cave. The guy in no time found the plant without a sweat. While being in the middle of retrieving it, the two demons arrived. Centipede instantly recognized Yi and pointed him out as the criminal. Turtle couldn't wait to eliminate Yi for his disrespect, so he powered up and grew huge. Centipede practically got out the popcorn ready for the show, but Yi wasn't even fazed. He turned around to find out what that sound was, and when the Demon King looked into his eyes, he lost all his power and turned into a small turtle. Yi stopped and kicked it as if he was putting out a fire, and then picked it up saying he would use it for a delicious soup. The Demon King fainted after hearing that, and the centipede was questioning reality yet again, as he laid on the floor praying he didn't get Yi's attention. Yi just found him disgusting, and walked past and mentioned that he was on his way to retrieve the final plant, which had the centipede freaking out. All the while, the minions Turtle had sent out bumped into the only humans living near the vicinity. They belonged to the sword sect and were transporting a precious weapon through the valley. Out of nowhere, they were suddenly ambushed by the demons and easily captured, but one of them was able to send a discreet SOS message to the sect. Later on, Centipede went to get help of his own. He screamed out to the demon generals who appeared in their own aura-farming way. When they found out their king was going to be stewed by a human, an emergency protocol was issued. The 7 demon generals split up into groups. Some went to ask for help from other powerful demons, while the rest went on a mission to eradicate all humans at the mountain. Yi was busy getting lost, not knowing beasts were out for him. 2 men from the sword sect spotted him and almost attacked the guy for simply existing while trespassing in Bakufu Mountain. But a lady with a funny hairstyle named Miss Lee stopped them. It looked like she was their superior. She saw Yi as an ordinary mortal and advised him to be very careful since demons had been reported to being hostile recently. He was told to stick to the safest trail and leave the area as soon as possible. It was no surprise that Yi had a different experience. He didn't understand their panic. From his perspective, he hadn't encountered any dangerous creatures. Nevertheless, he thanked her and then left. Not long after he left, the demons had arrived and began their assault on the humans. Miss Lee's men struggled to keep them in check, so a few of them retreated. She along 2 others stayed to fight, but her sword attack was easily slapped away. What she didn't understand was why these generals were acting in such a manner. Up until now, they weren't experiencing this hostility. Miss Lee used a spell to search the memories of a fodder demon she defeated. She was shocked to learn that they were fighting because the demon lord had been captured and could potentially be soup later that evening. Before she could process that information, 3 of the generals attacked her, but she barely escaped with her life on her flying sword. She eventually crash-landed into a body of water Yi was bathing in. He recognized her and returned the favor by helping. The lady was knocked out cold and later woke up that night to Yi roasting fish. Being a nonchalant gentleman, he offered her some, but she rejected. Maybe it was because it had no seasoning. He couldn't care less and ate his food. I don't think she even thanked him for the save. The lady instead reiterated for him to leave the mountain as soon as possible. Yi just blinked at her. He was having the time of his life so far and did not understand a word of her urgency. He wanted to know why she was pushing so hard for him to depart. Miss Lee had no choice but to inform him about the mysterious and powerful demon king who was the absolute ruler of the mountain with over 100,000 demons under his kingdom. Yi learned about how a powerful human had stolen the demon king's treasure and even captured him. That act forced the generals to go on an annihilation spree, so that was the reason she told him to leave before he ended up dead. What she didn't know was that the turtle hanging upside down on the tree was the demon king captured by the very man she was looking down on. Yi was afraid after hearing what was happening, but collecting the herbs was far more important. Miss Lee gathered herself and left after rejecting medical aid from Yi, saying a mere mortal's herb would serve her no purpose. The days that followed nearly killed her. Demons on every side, No rest and no food to feed that angry belly. And as for Yi, well, he felt so safe that he built a working guitar from scratch. Their paths crossed 3 days later. The evidence of her struggle was clear. Blood here, a scuff there, clothes ripped, while Yi looked as fresh as a new haircut. The lady couldn't believe her eyes. From what Yi could remember during their previous interaction, Miss Lee was afraid of bugs. He handed her an insect repellent, which she accepted solely because it was a gift, and nothing else. They once again went their separate ways. It turns out these two were the only survivors in the mountain, so later that night, the demons rallied themselves and locked in to finish the job. Centipede saw their hype as a waste of energy. He was trying to make a tactical escape. The little insect knew they stood no chance. He barely took 2 steps when he was dragged into the mission. Refusal to tag along would result in instant death. So it was either he die now, or die later to Yi. He chose to cling on to precious life a bit longer and went with them. Moments later, his party crossed paths with Yi. Our boy was sleeping under the night sky. He had no shelter, so he encircled himself with the insect repellent. As soon as Centipede recognized it was Yi, Night-Night, he fell unconscious right away. The fodder monsters obviously didn't know who they were up against and went in for the kill, but they got taken out by the repellent. All 7 generals thought their level of power was too great to be affected by such a cheap trick. Cheap trick or not, they too fell victim instantly and died. When Yi woke up to take a leak, he was beyond shocked that a simple insect repellent killed such large animals. Centipede was even more traumatized after waking up to see his peers dead. He quietly crawled away, praying to never encounter this human demon ever again. While that was taking place, 2 powerful members from the Sword Clan entered the mountain to rescue Miss Lee. They spotted the 7 demon generals lifeless on the floor and wondered who could have performed such a feat. Considering Yi was the only one in the area, they attributed it to him even though he wasn't giving off any spiritual energy. That was until he began playing his guitar, which emitted some divine-level aura they recognized as being too awesome. The 2 instantly descended to introduce themselves and even addressed him as master. What was even more amazing to them was seeing the Demon King hanging on the tree like bacon. They humbled themselves further when Yi spoke about making soup using the Turtle Demon King as the base ingredient. Yi, still oblivious to the reality of the situation, thought these 2 had come to be entertained. He gave them a performance worthy of the Super Bowl halftime show. Somehow the music he was playing contained martial arts that made them level up. How, you ask? Anime logic.
No, not anime logic.
It's because that's why.
Whatever the case was, Yi was so powerful that simply playing a musical instrument made others stronger. They got on their knees, tears flowing from their faces from pure gratitude, and pledged to aid him in any way possible. With a blank look on his face, puzzled by their behavior, he asked if they had a solution to getting rid of the dead creatures. Their answer was a special ring the lady had, but she was reluctant to give it out since it was a family treasure. The man, however, convinced her, saying it was the least they could do. He even pointed out that Yi's shovel was worth more than her stupid valuable item. That simple statement was enough. She activated the ring which stored the creatures within it, and then handed the heirloom over to Yi. Elsewhere, Yebei had tasked 2 of his men to gather intel on Yi. What they brought shocked him. He was only now finding out that Ming's sect was destroyed with Yi's aid, and that Ming himself lost both his arms. What was more surprising was him learning that Old Wu was basically Yi's servant. These were the worst news Yebei was hoping for. The guy wanted a weakness he could use against Yi. Yebei was still plotting revenge. Back at the mountain, the 2 departed Yi's side to continue their search for Miss Lee. They found her healing her wounds, and immediately approached to ask what was going on. Miss Lee detailed everything, and mentioned the mysterious overpowered man who captured the Demon King. It was funny to them that she said that. They had just met him and wanted to take her to him. She first suggested they go save a mortal she knew, but the 2 gave each other a mischievous look and basically kidnapped her and took her to go see this powerful person. Miss Lee's eyes widened in shock, stating this was the mortal she was speaking about. It wasn't until the other 2 made her take a second proper look at the man that she recognized his aura. Miss Lee, without hesitation, fell to her knees. Everything that had happened so far now made so much sense. She had nothing to say other than expressing her foolishness. Yi just took his bag of herbs ready to hunt the final one. Before he left, the 2 wanted Yi to take Miss Lee as a student, but Yi misinterpreted their praise for her as them looking down on him. He walked away offended, uttering that he had important things to do. It didn't take long for him to casually find the 3rd plant, as if it was waiting for him. The only thing now was to return home and treat his student. Back at his martial school, Ouching the guard dog stretched out, enjoying his free time, wondering when his master would come back. His stress-free moment flipped on its head when Benway began to torment him. The skeleton chased him around, ordering to be freed. All Ao Ching had to do was ignore him, but he was too cowardly with barely any backbone. He lifted the seal holding Benway in place. The skeleton assembled his scattered pieces like he was some Power Ranger. I don't understand why the dog was so scared. All Benway wanted was to go after Yebei for daring to challenge their master. He took off with Ao Ching and used the dog as a magic carpet to fly through the sky to the destination he knew Yebei was heading to. All the while, Yebei was slowly coming to the realization that he couldn't do anything against Yi, especially after hearing more news that Yi took out the top-ranking people of the demon race, including the Demon King. In his mind, Yi was planning to take over the continent, so rather than revenge, Yebei opened his Plan B book, which was to merge with the Qinshan sect, and it was working so far. The over-the-top buffet did its job. By the second round of drinks, members from both sects were trading secrets like old friends. Qinshan confronted him about his plan, but the leader frustratingly couldn't do anything about Yebei's demonic plot. The members of both sects were already sold on the glamorous idea of merging. Yebei wasted no time. He prepared a ship to go with Qinshan to meet with the elders of the sect for official approval. Meanwhile, Benway already knew they were coming and teleported Yebei to his location. The Amazon Prime delivery was too slow. It goes without saying that Yebei was confused as he stood there wondering why this strange creature summoned him from so far away. Benway gave no answers. He only asked a question of his own. Do you admit your mistake? Yebei had no clue what the skeleton was talking about. Even when Benway pinned him down, the man still didn't know. He begged that he would apologize for whatever he did to offend the skeleton. All he needed was to know his crimes. An internal dialogue within Yebei showed he couldn't believe he was completely useless against this stranger. Benway finally gave the answer. He was attacking simply because the man offended his master. It wasn't until Yebei dug through his memories did he realize that the terrifying creature was merely the servant of Yi. For sure, Yebei regretted ever messing with Yi in the first place. Not long after, Qinshan and his second-in-command arrived, but before they spoke a word to Yebei, their legs turned to jelly, and they immediately fell to their knees. That was thanks to Benway's aura. The skeleton found out from the dog that these newcomers were guests of their master, so they weren't any trouble. They swiftly turned their attention back to Yebei. The man's survival instinct kicked him to grovel on the floor. Tears fell from his eyes, and when I say begging, this guy was begging for his life. Even Qinshan in the back couldn't believe his eyes. To save his life, Yebei was willing to demote himself to be doing the washing, sewing, cooking, and cleaning for Yi, basically the stats associated with an excellent housewife. His offer got rejected. He desperately looked back at Qinshan for a lifeline, but the man knew his place. There was no way he was going to speak in the presence of Benway without permission. Yebei's lifeline was severed. The final move was to offer his entire wealth and treasures in exchange for his life. It didn't impress Benway one bit, who wanted something much, much rarer. The guard dog pulled Skeleton to the side. He whispered that Yebei should bring them beautiful women instead. Since Benway was an entity of culture, he loved that idea and agreed that in exchange for Yebei's life, the guy should bring the ladies to the martial arts school in 3 days. Lust saved Yebei this time around. The conditions were easy for him to meet, and he quickly left the scene once he was dismissed. Meanwhile, the old alchemist from before, who had to slap himself 100 times, was only now recovering. He was on a journey looking for something important when he noticed a barrier with intense spiritual energy. Old man didn't learn his lesson from before. He flew over to take a look, only for it to be Skeleton yet again. PTSD kicked in harder than how he slapped himself as he attempted the escape, but Benway already sensed him and teleported the pensioner back. All his pleading didn't work. Benway was looking to teach him another lesson. This time, the guard dog chose the punishment. They collected his clothes and sent him away with only his undergarment. These two were really the unholy duo. They returned to their home to wait for the ladies. 3 days later, Yebei kept his promise and brought the women. Benway, with the biggest grin on his face, sat on his makeshift throne, throwing his master's gold like leaves at the dancing ladies. The enjoyment didn't last long. The useless dog could sense their master coming and tried to warn Benway, but Skeleton over here was too in the moment to even pay attention. That was until his spine shivered. He slowly lifted his head to see Yi standing there. Nothing could save him now, not even plot armor. Yi grabbed him before he could escape and squeezed Benway's face with anger. His eyes clearly conveyed that Skeleton was in huge trouble before throwing the guy across the compound. Yi politely told the ladies to shut everything down and scram. The service was provided by the local pleasure house, and Yi knew 2 of the seniors who were there. They informed him that the bill was going to be 100,000, but they gave him a 20% friends and family discount. The discount didn't matter because Yi was now broke. He turned to Benway and unleashed his absolute frustration on the Skeleton. By the end of it, Benwei was commissioned to clean the walls of the martial school as punishment. All the while, Qingshan arrived at the school with Old Man Alchemist whose name is Lu Dasheng. Lu Dasheng was on a hunt to find a special item. He first couldn't locate it at the Qingshan sect, so he angrily marched to the school believing he had it for some reason. Qingshan tried to calm him down. It didn't work. The moment Lu Dasheng laid eyes on Yi, he entered hostile mode, demanding to know where the treasure was hidden. Yi, of course, hadn't a clue what the senile old man was talking about. At this point, Lu Dasheng lost his cool and threatened to destroy Yi and his entire school. The old man had no issues with flexibility, as he backflipped on top of one of the walls ready for annihilation. That was until he spotted Benwei cleaning the walls and calling Yi his master. Whatever hair the old man had on his head shot up out of fear. Within a second, Lu Dasheng was on his knees begging, calling Yi his senior. The guy whipped out his most treasured item, which was a ring in a box, and presented it to Yi. From afar, it looked like a marriage proposal. Yi leaned in closer to his face, confused by his behavioral switch, asking Lu Dasheng if he was sick in the head. The man responded with an apology, but his amazement was going to continue when Old Wu and his peers entered while referring to Yi as master. They came to complete the job Yi had given them. Yi welcomed them in and excused himself to get the tools while they humbly stood there like they were in trouble. The common tool he came out with were apparently divine weapons. After seeing this, Lu Dasheng had a change of heart and wanted to work for Yi so that he too could get a divine weapon. The desperate, crazy old man couldn't wait, saying he'd do anything. The thing was, all the jobs had been taken, and the only one left was collecting poop. Initially, the old man almost left out of disgust, until he remembered that he could soon be holding a godly weapon. He followed Yi to the location, thinking the tool he was about to receive was more advanced than what was given to Old Wu and the rest. But when they got there, it was just a very ordinary poop collecting tool belonging to a professional poop collector. Lu Dasheng was heartbroken to say the least, but the job had to be done once every month as a matter of fact for very little pay. Yi thanked him and excused himself to make the medicine for Zhong. Although Qingshan believed in Yi's ability, he didn't think anything could be done looking at Zhong's condition, especially considering that the boy had no spiritual energy and was weak. At first, nothing happened when Zhong was given the medication, but he suddenly woke up, glowing a golden aura that blew Qingshan and Lan away. The aura manifested outside, and that was when Qingshan saw Zhong for who he really was. Apparently, this guy was a descendant of the ancient god race, and taking the medicine activated his true ability. Qingshan was lost for words by the ridiculous power Yi had under his rule. Yi just casually came out asking if they wanted to eat to celebrate Zhong's recovery, and that is how Season 1 of The Boy Who Thought He Was the Weakest, but was secretly the strongest ends. I'll be sure to do Season 2 if it ever comes out. Thanks for watching. Now go level up. See you in the next recap. Peace.